Hello everyone, Priscilla here and welcome to Kim Dave, the home of fashion, design and everything else in between. In this video, I am going to be making a follow-up tutorial to my previous video where I shared how to make a basic bodice front, back and sleeve for menswear. If you haven't seen that video already, I'm going to link it on the screen so you check that out and it just gives you a bit of reference. There were a few errors that came up from that project and I'm going to be addressing one of them today, which is essentially where you have a situation whereby the sleeve head is too big or too excess to fit into the armhole, and I'm going to be sharing some corrections that I will make on the bodice and on the sleeve pattern. I'm going to make a quick twirl from there, again using some affordable muslin, and then test it on my client, which happens to be my husband. So if you'd like to see how I do that, make sure to keep on watching. But at this point, everybody stop. Everybody, can we just have a moment here? Please give this video a thumbs up. Like, there's a thumbs up button right now, just give it that because it really helps my videos perform a lot better on the channel. It just tells the algorithm that you guys are enjoying the content I create, and it's just a win-win for everyone. So give this video a thumbs up, join the KDVAS fam if you haven't already. We're welcome in here, we don't judge anyone, and we grow and thrive together. All right, with that said, let's get into today's project. I have my basic bodice, front and back men's, as well as the sleeve. That's what I'm going to be using in this video. As I mentioned earlier on, please check the description box down below to see how I made this pattern from scratch. Now the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the shoulder width, which is what becomes the shoulder seam of this piece. Now on my client, we decided to reduce it to 6.5 inches, which brings in the edge of the shoulder a little bit inwards compared to how far out it is. This I'm going to do on the front and on the back hand side, and that would open up the sleeve a little bit more. I'm also going in here to drop the sleeve edge by about 1 inch. Whatever I do on the front, I essentially need to do on the back, so when I cut this onto fabric and stitch them all together, it connects well. Now with my pattern master, I'm going in to draw the front arm curve for this particular side, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the back bodice. Looking at this now, it's important to try and keep the top edge sort of straight, and then you want the bottom edge to curve in a little bit more. Don't forget to transfer any notch that you think would come in handy. Here I've transferred the front arm notch, so when I cut this and I cut it onto fabric, I know which side is the front and which side is the back. So now that the front is all done, I'm going to go ahead to work on the back. I have marked the drop on the side and the adjustment on the shoulder width, and then I'm going in here to draw in the new back arm curve. Now that the adjustments are done for the shoulder and the arm curve, I'm going to go ahead to work on the sleeve. This is what everything is looking like. The front and the back is all done. I'm just going in here to double check that the shoulders match, the side seam match, and everything is correct before I cut this onto fabric. Now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go ahead to measure the front and the back arm curve so I know how long they are, so when I make any changes to my sleeve head, I have a rough idea of how much ease is on my sleeve to ease into my armhole. So I've measured the front, I've measured the back, I just took a note of them. I'm going in here to measure the sleeve before making any changes, so I know whatever difference is going to be taken out after I make my change. I make a change to the sleeve head later on in this video, but for now I just measured that head, took note of it, but I'm going in here to actually make the sleeve longer and the hemline more curved. This was something that my client wanted to be changed on his sleeve, so he wanted it just a little bit longer below his elbow, and then have a curved hem in the sense that it is a little bit shallower in the middle and then it curves outwards towards the side, in such a sense that when you stitch up the side seam and the person puts it on, it doesn't make like a weird V shape that it would normally do if you do like a straight hemline. So that's the change I'm doing here. I added a 1 centimeter hem allowance before cutting out this particular side of the bottom of the sleeve. After doing this, I set it aside just to check that I made all the changes, because I literally wrote a list of changes I wanted to make on this thing before making another 12. Once I was happy with all of the changes, this is what the patterns are looking like. I know it's a go ahead for me to actually cut this onto fabric, stitch it all together, and then have another fitting towards the end of this video. If you are interested in a women's wear basic bodice that goes from a size 6 to a size 16, I have one available on the Kim Dave store. Link is going to be in the description down below for that and other PDF patterns that you guys could explore. Now it's time to test the patterns that I just made changes to. I'm cutting only half of the front and half of the back on this really lightweight muslin. I am going to also only cut one sleeve to fit on this half. This is something I do when I am just being conscious of how much fabric I'm using. You can cut a whole piece if you want to. It's just that we fitted a whole piece before, so we have an idea of the length and other things. Now for the sleeve head itself, I've gone in here to mark 1.5 inches low because I noticed the original pattern I made, the original sleeve pattern, was a bit too pointy on the head, so I have made it a lot more shallower so it doesn't make so much of a point when it is stitched into the armhole. So this one I'm cutting away the excess. I've transferred my notch on the front, the back, as well as that middle point, which is where it is going to go into the shoulder seam. This notch I am cutting onto the fabric as well, so it helps me, you know, put everything together in a nice and orderly manner. Moving on to sewing the half toile together, I have put right side together of my fabric facing each other, and I'm going to be sewing the shoulder seam first. This way I have the shoulder seam stitched before I add the sleeve. So I'm going to take this to my machine and I'm going to be sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is what my pattern has. After doing this, I am going to grab my sleeve and join right sides together of my sleeve to the right side of my half toile, starting from that shoulder point, and then I'm going to pin the front side of the sleeve to the front side of the bodice and other necessary sides. This is just one way to fit sleeves. I find that fitting sleeves like this is slightly less intimidating. You can do it on a round, which is essentially when you join the shoulder, you join the side, and then you join the side of your sleeve, and then you fit the whole of the roundness of the sleeve into the armhole. So now I'm just going in here to sew the sleeve into the armhole that is still on a flat like this. Once that is all stitched in place, then I'm going to open up the piece and join the side seam of the sleeve and the side seam of the bodice in one continuous stitch. So basically you're just killing two birds with one stone. So I'm just going in here sewing on my 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is what my sewing pattern has, and I'm going to stitch all the way till the end, give my piece a nice press before I invite my client in for another fitting. So this is what the half toile is looking like on George. Keep in mind that this is just half of the piece, but straight off the bat, the sleeve head looks so much better compared to what it was. There are other things that I would go ahead to tweak, but the main aim of this video was just to show what it used to look like before and then see what it looks like after. So if you're someone who has a challenge on your garment, on your pattern, you know this is something you can apply to solve that issue. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I will continue to share more menswear projects in the future, but if you did enjoy this video, do give it a thumbs up, leave your comments, suggestions, any tips and ideas down below, and until next time, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.